Welcome back to the Metal Exchange. Justin and Chris here with you for a post-ProgPower roundup. We got back yesterday. I know I got back extremely late. Flights canceled, flights delayed, bad weather in the New York area. I know you were affected as well. I'll lead with this. How are you, my friend?
I got back technically today, so if we're going to be technical about it, but I'm good. I'm feeling a little sore, but otherwise all good. I had a really good time, and I'm looking forward to recapping it and maybe seeing some stuff that maybe you missed or I missed, and kind of filling in all the blanks and everything in between.
There is definitely a lot of blanks to fill in. And we actually have a special guest with us to help fill in some of those blanks, because you and I both did not see day one of the festival. I had kind of alluded to that fact when we had talked about this on our Patreon-only preview episode. And to make a long story short, it just wasn't in the cards for me that night. So we are joined by one of our premier patrons, Charles Florio. Charles, thank you for joining us on the Metal Exchange.
It's great to be here with you guys.
Yeah, it's gonna be good, and we're gonna really kind of lean on you for this, because as we go through this lineup, obviously, I know you were there for all 4 days, but you are our resident expert for night one, which was capped off by, from all accounts, just a phenomenal performance by Doro. But we'll get there in a little bit. Why don't you just introduce yourselves? Tell everybody listening who you are. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and kind of give us your credentials, if you will.
Well, my name is Charles Florio. I'm 55 years old. I live in Lynbrook. I've been to 5 ProgPowers. The last 5, me and my fiance have been to all 5. It's a great experience. I think this might be the one that just ended might be my favorite one out of the ones that I've been to so far.
Nice. I'm glad to hear that. And I know that we've talked offline about some of, the lineup in general, and obviously day one. So, without further ado, let's kind of get into it. This first night kicks off with a band called The Reticent. They were a replacement for another band, a Long Island band, actually, not far from where we are, called Ice Age. But The Reticent got announced. I don't know that much by these guys. I remember listening to them a couple of years ago, but it didn't really stay on my radar for that long. What did they sound like, and how was their performance?
The performance was, I'm trying to think of the words to use, very, very intense. That's the best way I can describe it. It wasn't, again, I don't want it to come across as being the wrong thing to say. They were the wrong band to start the festival, in my opinion. I thought the message that they were trying to convey was a great message, but I think it would be suited later in the set as opposed to where they were. The stage was all dark. I think they had a blue light coming from behind them. And the subject matter with the video, I think it was regarding dementia or Alzheimer's, if I remember correctly. And the video, they had a video screen. It was a very heavy way to start the festival. And I'm not sure, in my opinion, if that was the right thing to do.
And I want to be clear. I appreciate your opinion. I am going to give some negative critiques later on, although I think, like you said, all in all, a very positive experience. But, I think that, Chris and I made a vow 3 years ago when we started this, which was to give honest opinions and really not say things just for the sake of being positive. So I appreciate what you're saying. That's a very deep message to kick off a 4-day metal festival. And although I think that might resonate, maybe that wasn't the best fit for that particular set.
I felt like when we walked in, it was like there was like nothing. It was just like everybody was focusing on what they were doing. And they were very technically fantastic. But to kick off a festival, in my opinion, you need to have something that's going to raise the level for the other bands behind it. And I felt that it just wasn't the right fit. Not that they weren't the right fit for the festival, they weren't the right fit to start it off.
They're also a prog band, which sometimes is a little bit mellow or low-key potentially to kick something off. You look for something sometimes a little high-speed, a little thrashier, maybe even power metal, just to kind of get your gears going and kind of set the table. But if by all accounts and by that which I have heard, this was not that, and it was more introspective, some really serious messaging there. And while I appreciate that, it might be best served for just personal listening or personal consumption.
I would circle back to last year on day 2 when they had Spectra, which was the Brazilian band that Jeff Scott Soto played keyboards with, opened things up, and then they had Wilderun follow. I feel like that was a better choice than, say, doing that the other way around and having Wilderun, which was a little bit more proggy and darker, kind of start things out, to have a more upbeat kind of opener. So I definitely agree with what both of you were saying there.
And I think that... Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, especially if you really think about it. You guys, and Chris has alluded to this before, ProgPower 2022 was just great to be here post-pandemic. And I think we're going into 2023, I wasn't even thinking about a pandemic. I just wanted to have fun and not worry about nothing. And to kick it off with a band with a heavy message, the crowd was just like hand claps at the end. But they were very good at what they did. Very good.
And to your point, they give way or they leave the stage, and half an hour later, Elven King comes on. And Elven King is kind of what you want to open up a festival. A little folky, but fast, fun, energetic. But by the same token, I understand why, just in terms of notoriety or popularity, the Elven King had to go on after the Reticent, who's a band that not that many people are familiar with. But nonetheless, Elven King takes the stage. I had the pleasure of seeing them on 70,000 Tons of Metal earlier this year, so they were a big draw for me. But I've seen them, just 6 months ago or what have you. So talk to me about Elven King and how they followed up the Reticent's performance.
They were the band that should have opened the festival. I can't sugarcoat it. They should have been the opener because they were great. I love their new record. When they came on, the whole place was energized because that's what they should have been. They should have went on first. I can't say it any other way. They were fantastic.
Did you hear enough that made you want to check out the back catalog? I know you like the new album. I agree with you. It's a good listen. They've got some gems deeper in the catalog, enough to make you kind of go back and just dabble in some of the older material?
Absolutely. See, whenever I hear a band for the first time, I always go to their recent and released. I'm assuming this is what you're doing now. And so now, no, I'm definitely going to go backwards with Elven King. I thought they were great. They sounded good. And I'm interested in hearing what brought them to this point now. I don't really know much about the back catalog. I'm assuming it's similar. Maybe it's not. I'm going to find out.
Yeah, and it's interesting because if you look at the set list they played, and for those that don't want it spoiled, I won't really go into details, but they touched on a little bit of everything that they've done. So to their credit, they knew they had an hour, and it seems like they made the most of it with their song selection, just kind of touching upon everything, including the new album.
Yeah, I mean, I thought they were fantastic. The crowd was into it. They sounded good. Center Stage is a great venue. I mean, I don't remember ever hearing a band not sound good there, personally. But I thought they were great, Elven King.
I got to think, Chris, this was the toughest pill to swallow in terms of misses for you because this is right up your alley.
Yeah, I mean, even if you go back to that episode that, like you mentioned, that we recorded for the Patreon, they were definitely the Wednesday band that I had highest on my list that I wanted to see. It just was. It just came down to money, and to me, like, after taxes and everything, and all the Ticketmaster fees and all the nonsense, it's about $150, and that just was a lot of money for me to spend on just what was essentially one band. I have a feeling I'll have an opportunity to see them again in the future, so I'm not too upset about it. But considering that it was supposed to be Power Quest that was in that slot, I feel like I've run out of disappointment for that one particular spot anyway. So it's all good.
No, they were really good. The crowd was into it. They sounded good. I don't know what else I can say. I ran into a couple of the members the day after. I told them how much I enjoyed their set. They were really appreciative of it. And again, I'm going to go back to that. They should have opened up day one.
I completely understand. It's interesting. The next band that played was another band that had played on 70,000 Tons. And Chris, our mutual friend Tyler, said to me on 70,000 Tons, you can't miss Cynic. And I know you're not a fan of the band, but you got to go see them live. They're fantastic. This is what he told me earlier this year. So on his recommendation, I sit down next to him in this like beautiful setting in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And we sit down and we watch Cynic playing in an ice rink, but obviously without the ice. But it's like this, they're in the half round or whatever. Cynic takes the stage. And about 3 minutes, and they're playing Focus, which is like their big album, the one that everyone talks about as being like their magnum opus, if you will. And I sit down, they start playing this set list, and I said to myself, about 3 minutes into this set, what is going on here? Like, I know Veil of Maya, I'm not a fan of the band, but they open with that. They get into Celestial Voyage. And I looked at Tyler, and Tyler looked at me, and he said, man, I'm so sorry. He goes, I am so sorry. This is not how I remember this band. It just lacked the energy. And from what I understand, there's been lineup changes, there's been deaths, there's been a whole slew of reasons. But for whatever reason, the performance on 70K was extremely disappointing. And this is really a segue into my question for you, Charles. Did Cynic disappoint? Or did they actually meet some level of expectations? Because I have none for the band.
I didn't catch much of their set.
Okay.
I caught some of it towards the tail end. They sounded technically fantastic. But I wasn't really a fan going in to them. So we didn't really stick around to see them. But when we did go back in, I was watching some of it. It sounded very good in terms of their abilities to play. But I didn't really see the entire set, but they were technically great. I mean, that's the best way I can say it.
And it's funny because we bumped into someone before our flight down to Atlanta, like bumped into a random person who said, I'm not going to ProgPower this weekend, but I am flying down on Wednesday and coming back on Friday just so I can see Cynic. I was blown away, and I didn't have the heart to tell him my thoughts on the band because I'm not going to rain on his parade. But again, for being honest, it's just a band I've never been able to get into. I thought the live performance, while again technically proficient, bored me. It just wasn't something I'm into. And again, maybe if you're a diehard fan of the band, it almost doesn't matter how flat the performance sounded to me. But listen, that again, that's why some people like thrash, and then some people like jazz. Like it's all good.
That's right. It's all relative to what everyone's ears are different, and that's what makes that festival really great. Because we ran into Adrian at the airport, and he was there for Cynic. I mean, that's great. I mean, you want to see that. You just don't want it to be all about what you like. You want to see what everybody likes.
And that is the reason we do this show each and every week, because we are listening to things that we know, some things we don't know, and it really is giving everybody exposure to new things, albeit through our honest lens. But just because I don't like Cynic doesn't mean other people wouldn't have raved about their set. It sounds like you got something out of it, but it's not your cup of tea necessarily, and that's okay.
Justin, did Tyler go and try to see them again this time around, or
no?
Okay.
I think, and so like when he saw them, it must have been quite a while ago, the first time he saw them, and it must have been a very memorable performance for him, but he was sorely disappointed by that last effort that he did not go on Wednesday. I think he decided to skip it. Probably because of the taste that was left in his mouth from earlier this year.
Yeah, I was wondering if maybe he wanted to try and get like a redemption
tour. No, I think not to be had this time around. So unfortunately, or if he did, he didn't tell me, but I don't think that he attended.
No, I just figured I'd ask.
So now we get into the band that I was probably most eager to see, and had I never seen them, I think I would have made a point to come, and that's Swallow the Sun. This was a band that I know Chris didn't spend a ton of time with. They have a massive back catalog, but they are a doomy death band that has been putting out some great albums over the years, including their most recent release. And I was curious more than anything how they would not only sound, but how they would go over with a crowd, which is not really geared towards the heavier side of things. Now, sometimes they'll get into a thrash band, or sometimes they'll get into, a prog band with growls. But this is doomy death stuff that, for the most part, might fall upon deaf ears. Although I eat this up. I'm wondering about your thoughts about this band and how familiar you were with them going in.
Somewhat familiar with them. They didn't really get my ear. They just didn't really click with me. Same thing with like Cynic. I was in and out on them. People were digging them, and that was great. It was not as flat as it was with the Reticent. It was not like that. It was people were into what they were doing, which was great to see. But for my ear, it just wasn't there. It just wasn't there.
And I can understand that, you're a thrash guy, so I want to put that out there just by way of background. Not that that's exclusively what you listen to,
correct.
But to say that that thrash metal isn't in your wheelhouse would be an understatement. And I'm sure if we had you on for Evil Invaders, I'm sure you could give a thesis about that performance. And
yes,
I'll do my best later to talk about what I saw of them and my reaction. But
sure.
Before we get there, this, a band like Swallow the Sun is really the antithesis of that. So I can understand why it may not have clicked for you, or why it, quite frankly, is just not your jam in a live setting.
Yeah, I mean, I like slow, like Candlemass I like, but when it's too slow, it's not energetic enough. And it's like, if it's too slow, it's not energetic enough. If it's too fast, it's not heavy enough. It's like a combination of everything. They just didn't get my ear, but I know a lot of people that like them. I know people that were going to go to ProgPower just to see them. Mm. Whether they made it there, I don't know. But
interesting.
Yes, I had friends that were interested in going to see Swallow the Sun at ProgPower.
And so they end the show with not a power metal band or a prog band, but really just a classic 80s name that we all know. And I'm looking at the set list here, and it looks like she not only did a Judas Priest cover, but she did a ton of Warlock tunes, which is what you could expect. And obviously, I'm alluding to Doro Pesch, who headlined the night. Talk to me not only about her set, but about the crowd, the response she got. Because I know, without kind of burying the lead here, I know tickets did not sell nearly as well for this night as they did for others, and that's disappointing. No. But to be fair, if there's any barometer, Chris and I didn't go to the show. So that should tell you something about, it's 4 days, it's a lot. And the lineup was a bit off. I can say with certainty we will both be there next year. It's shaping up to be fantastic.
Yes, it is.
But I want to hear about all things Doro, because I have a feeling that you probably enjoyed this more.
I love the Doro set. We've seen her live many, many times. She's just great. I mean, I don't know how you could not love Doro as a person for what she's accomplished in her 40-plus years in metal. She was great. I was disappointed with the crowd because I felt the venue was more crowded earlier on with whoever bought a ticket.
Mm.
And when I was looking around, like, well, where did everybody go? Granted, people are at the bar. I was disappointed in that. But then I said to myself, well, we're here, and that's all that matters. She was great.
And
She was fantastic.
It looks like she played a greatest hit set, which is always nice to see. Any standout tunes that you said to yourself, I'm so glad she played?
Yes, Revenge from the Raise Your Fist record. She ended with that. It's a great track. I thought the Breaking the Law cover was good because she does a mellow take on it and then kicks into it.
Nice.
Doesn't just play the straight up Judas Priest version. Burning Wishes is a great track. I thought she played a lot of great songs. And she's just a great performer. And I thought she was, the perfect headliner, I'm not sure. But she was a great headliner for day one. Like, I don't think you can. I don't know if she's a day 2 headliner. I don't think she's a day 3 or a day 4 headliner, if that means anything.
That makes sense. You're kind of ratcheting it up as you go along, type of thing,
Correct.
Especially for that crowd, which is a little unique in that it seems to like what it likes and not always willing to venture out into uncharted waters. Which, again, this shouldn't be uncharted waters for anybody, but For those that were a little bit younger, or for those that are just not into the more straight up heavy metal, right, this might have rubbed somebody the wrong way. But it sounds like you enjoyed it, and that's the main thing.
I did, but the one thing I will say is that I think you could have taken Doro and put her somewhere on day 2, 3, and 4, but not as a headliner.
That makes sense.
She could have been there anywhere on this festival, but not as a headliner.
That makes complete sense, and to that end, we'll obviously talk in detail about the headliners on day 2, 3, and 4. But I just wanted to thank you for coming on and joining us and kind of providing us with a little bit of color for the one day that Chris and I certainly could not.
Yeah, I don't blame you guys for not buying ticket. Hey, if it's not a cheap ticket in the grand scheme of flying down there. The other days, the transportation, the food, the alcohol, whatever you're into, it all adds up, But again, I felt the fans that did buy tickets and were there, I don't know where they went when she was on. And that was odd because that festival, all those bands that played, no matter who they are, they may not have gotten their start without Doro Pesch. So how do you not go see her if you have a ticket and being the legend that she is?
Very well said.
Odd.
Very well said. Thanks again. We look forward to catching up with you soon, and we'll have you back on.
All right. Great seeing you guys again.
Cheers.
Thanks, Charles.
You got it.
And so that brings us to day 2, which was arguably one of the days I was looking forward to the most. I admittedly got there and missed the first 2 bands. I had just seen Seven Kingdoms with you not so long ago, and I had missed 0 Hour just because I'm not a huge fan of the band. But did you catch either one of those sets, or did you miss them yourself?
I saw the end of Seven Kingdoms, and they did a hell of a job, and they're kind of like hometown heroes of the festival, if you will. Being that Camden and Sabrina have been a part of ProgPower for so long, but credit goes out to the whole band. They really, I think they deserved to be there. I think that was speaking of like a high energy opener. I mean, that I think is a great example of a band that you want to just get everybody going. And I thought they did a great job, and they got a really nice reaction. 0 Hour I missed, unfortunately. I think I was just outside the venue, just having drinks or something to eat and talking to people. And typically you could actually hear the set from through the walls or whatever. But I don't remember being able to. I heard a few bass lines that I recognized, but that was about it. So. Maybe we should have found somebody who saw them and could have shared a little something on that. But they would go on to be, of the 3 days, the only band I didn't see at least a portion of. So
I totally understand, and we'll go into some depth here because the halo effect takes the stage. And I had mentioned how excited I was to see them. it's interesting. I had kind of high expectations for them. I don't know that they exceeded my expectations, but they definitely met them. I expected a professional set. These are guys that have been doing it for a long, long time. They play a refreshing yet throwback take on melodic death metal, right? Like, it sounds like Old In Flames, but at the same time, it has, slick production, the awesome, the awesome vocals that sound just like Dark Tranquility for obvious reasons. Just a really, really good set, in my opinion. They kind of played all the classic stuff from the first album, which you otherwise would have expected. I was just very happy with their set. And, for my mind, I thought they were going to set a really high watermark for this first night. And they did in many ways.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into it. But I thought I was really pleased with this set. I thought that it sounded really good. I don't think it sounded as good as what would follow. But overall, I was really glad I took the time to listen to this band because I really ended up enjoying it. It was great being, knowing the songs, and we got got to hear 3 songs from their upcoming album as well. So good stuff. I think they played about 12 songs, and like you said, just a really solid, professionally well done set. I think anybody who has a chance to go check them out live, I would recommend it because it was good. And this probably, when they were announced, was probably like one of the bands that was towards the bottom of my excitement list. And I feel like through the podcast and listening to them and then going to see them live, I think that they ended up being one of my favorite sets of the weekend, actually.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear it. But what's interesting to me is I'm looking at your shirt. You're wearing a Vola shirt. What the hell's going on, man? I know we did the career retrospective, but you bought a Vola shirt. Tell me how that happened.
It was a religious experience.
Wow.
Their performance was unbelievable. Unfortunately, I got held up chatting with some people outside, and I missed I definitely missed the first song. They opened with Vertigo. I may have came in during Alien Shivers. Definitely heard some of Stone Leader Falling Down, and then I was in for the rest of the way. Never left the Ruby Pool once I was in it. But the sound, the visuals, it was really incredible. But particularly the sound. I thought that they were arguably the best sounding band of the weekend. It was just talk about professional. I was absolutely blown away by this performance, and I bought a shirt because I thought that they earned that. I thought they earned that. I just thought it was phenomenal. Great set list. They didn't play my song of the week, which the previous band and the band after them did. So that's Vola's only strike. But I cheers to Tyler for talking these guys up to me, which kind of was what inspired me to want to do the career retrospective, and I'm so glad that I did because I feel like I was really rewarded for it. How about you?
I was a little concerned how they were going to follow up the Halo effect because of the energy that they bring. I also knew that if Vola was going to put on a good performance, it would be in this room because, by all accounts, they sound great everywhere. But I had a feeling that if they're going to sound great everywhere, then in this particular setting, they were going to sound fantastic. And they did. But not only did they sound fantastic, the energy they brought and the just onslaught of visuals and audio stimulation at the same time was unlike anything that I've experienced in a long time. I was so happy with this set. I think it was probably a top 3 set for me. Maybe the best set I saw across the board. But I think there was one band that sounded better, but I'll get to them a little bit later. But if you add the sound, the visuals, the set list, you could have done a lot worse than this. This was, like A-level material from Vola. This was fantastic.
A lot of focus on their two most recent albums. 12 out of the 15 songs came from Witness and Applause of a Distant Crowd, and then they threw in 2 tracks from In Mazes and then Paper Wolf, which is the newer single that they released recently. But it was a really nice selection, and I enjoyed the hell out of it. This was probably by far. As you know, I was excited going into it, but they even blew away those expectations. And it was funny because we were getting amped up via Knops, who had saw them in Orlando the night before in what he described as a strip mall. And he said to me, if they sound this good in a strip mall, they're going to sound incredible at center stage. And he didn't overhype it. It was really that good. And I think most people who saw it, who may have not even known the band that well, probably came out, with more respect for the band or more fandom, and maybe they bought a shirt or are going to listen to more albums. And that's really, that's all you can hope for as a live performing act. They were really outstanding. And I'll rank my top 3 or 5, I guess, sets at the end. Maybe you will too. But the Vola's on that list for sure.
And so we get to the band that we were both, I think, more excited. And I know we were more excited to see than anybody else based on our Patreon chat. And that's Beast in Black. This is an artist that I've never seen before. I know you've had the pleasure. I just expected a balls to the wall set. And they did. To their credit, they played 19 songs. They didn't leave you wanting more. But before I get to my thoughts, what did you think of their headlining set? I know you had high expectations as well.
Yeah, you know what? It didn't meet my high expectations, and maybe they were just too high. But as far as like song selection goes, I mean, they played almost every song in their catalog. Really, right. They don't have much more than 19 songs. They probably have about, if you don't count the covers they've done, that's like maybe more than half of their entire catalog. I don't know that there was even one song I could think of that I was like, damn, I wish they would have played this. Maybe Belladonna might have been just the only one. And Giannis was great. I thought the band was really good. The energy was good. The performance was good. The sound just did not agree with me. I don't know if between the number of things that were pre-recorded, and used for backing tracks, plus the overall mix in general, it kind of just took a little bit away from me. It still was a great set, but I just think my expectations just weren't met because of it. There were parts where like the backing vocals were clearly Giannis, but the other band members were lip syncing Giannis's backing vocals, which I think looked kind of cheesy. And just there's so much, and we talked about this going into it. There's so much synthesized music with this band. There's so much that could be performed via a keyboard player. And Battle Beast the next day showed what the difference could sound like when you have an actual keyboard player on stage. And I think that might have been the biggest issue at the end of the day. But then again, there were, Ad Infinitum had backing tracks for certain of the certain orchestral parts, and I think that they sounded better. I don't know if they were louder or clearer or what, but it could have just been a bad day at the office for the soundboard, but it just fell a little bit flat for me. And because the expectations were so high, it was a little bit of a disappointment. But that said, I still had a good time watching them.
You hit a number of the things I would have said. And I'll tell you, again, I had extremely high expectations. So that was strike one. Strike two, not only did the backing that tracks not lend itself to basically improvised backing vocals by the other members, But to me, the bigger issue was that there were times where the track just stopped and it almost sounded like the band stopped playing. I mean, it was like, I don't know if it was like a Milli Vanilli moment. I didn't know what was going on, but I was just remember thinking to myself, I can hear Giannis sing and he sounds good, but they were just like a half step off at times. The whole thing was just a little sloppy, and I was surprised. Now we can chalk it up to being the first night of the tour. As we record this, they're actually playing in New York as we speak. So, I will go see them again. I want to give them a second chance. They deserve a second chance. Their music is intoxicating to me, but it just fell a little bit short, and it was almost comically bad in certain spots. So I'm chalking it up to an off night, and maybe when you put the whole package together, they really do sound great. But I had a lot of people not only telling me that this was, a great live band, but they were telling me that this is going to steal the show hands down, and it wasn't even close. I don't think I would put it in my top half of bands that were either wowed me or floored me for various reasons, which I'm sure we'll get to.
Yeah, and I think it might have been an expectations thing, because I talked to people that thought they were great, and maybe their expectations were lower. I go back and listen to our Beast in Black episode. We ranked all three albums pretty damn high. So yeah, the expectations were sky high. So it is what it is. It was certainly not a bomb by any stretch of the imagination.
No,
but I just think that it's weird. Sometimes there's just times where, depending on where you're standing, and you could get like a weird the way the sound hits you. But you were right next to me, so we can't really say that it sounded any different in a different part of the room.
No, that's true.
But I will say the crowd was really into it. It was well attended. I thought they were definitely a great choice for a headliner. It just, again, the expectations were high, and I don't know, maybe they were unmeetable. I don't know.
Well, that kind of sums up day two. I thought it was a really solid night, all things considered, with two bands that just kind of really did it for me, Vola being the stars of the show. And we get to day three, and we open up with the Cryptex. Now, I had high expectations for this, because not only was this being flouted as a can't-miss band by Glenn, the promoter, but it just seemed like a really unique experience, and everything I heard from them, at least on their last couple of albums, was enough to keep me very engaged and entertained. I have strong suspicions that I will not enjoy the new album, because I thought that the worst songs during this set were all from the new album. I just didn't care for them. But when they played stuff that I did recognize, I thought they were quite good. And it was almost like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde act, because part of it I loved, part of it I didn't. And then at the end of the set, the singer decides to do his impression of The Who and start breaking microphone stands. I thought that was a little weird and kind of ill-fitting. I didn't really know what to make of it, but I'll say this. Damn, did they have great energy. And that guy is a great front man, not just a good singer. So I give him credit for that. But, not my ideal set list, but a pretty good performance.
Yeah, he brought a very theater-based kind of performance mixed with this kind of proggy sort of sound. I thought the rest of the band the musician wise were excellent. I thought it was really enjoyable. I thought it was a cool choice for an opener. One disappointing thing was that the duet with Amber or whatever from Xandria unfortunately didn't happen. As it was explained to me, she was still doing her autograph signing with the rest of the band, and it kind of created a bit of a conflict timing wise. So unfortunately, she wasn't able to make it out. But I really enjoyed the parts where the vocalist and I'm blanking on his name, Simon, where he sat down and played the piano. It really gave me like John Oliva vibes.
Completely agree.
Where he just sat down at the piano and sang, and they have some of their piano songs have such beautiful melodies that I think really combine well with the rest of the music. But I thought the band really brought the energy. I thought the crowd was a little sparse at the beginning. I think it started to fill in as they went on. But it was a cool opener, and I'm glad that I gave them a chance as well. It was really wild when Simon just went apeshit on the microphone stand. I really
what did the microphone stand do to him?
I just hope he brought his own in that case, because I'm sure the crew was probably clenching their whatever's backstage watching this happen.
I'll tell you a story after we stop recording about that.
Well, I know. I was talking to Lane, and Lane was just he's like, I was measuring the trajectory of the of the microphone stand, and I was a little nervous that I was going to take a shot to the head because he was standing in the photo pit during the end of their set. It was very dramatic, but I'd say the whole performance was dramatic. A lot of crawling on the stage. Simon's a real visual performer, I will say. So it really cool little set. I will be curious when the full album came out. I think they said they brought around 30 copies of the CD and they were selling it at the merch stand. I opted to just wait until it actually is released. It comes out in a couple of weeks anyway. But I thought that was a cool thing to do. It was a cool opener. I think my expectations might have been slightly higher, but all in all, it was really enjoyable.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, there was about half the set I really, really enjoyed. Some of it lost me, but those piano sections where he would just sit down and play, strong Sabotage vibes, and that's definitely not a bad thing because it was well done. And then we get into another band that probably, in retrospect, could have been a headliner, and that's Battle Beast. I know you were looking forward to this immensely. I know you had high expectations for this one as well. Did we hit them this time?
The expectations were high. They were exceeded. This set was out of this world. I was in the photo pit. They were one of the bands that I sponsored. I was concerned that it might not sound good and that I would have to actually leave the pit. Because sometimes when you're in the pit, some of the music kind of travels behind you. And that did happen at other points. It did not happen in this case. The whole band sounded fantastic. Nora is just the absolute epitome of just, I couldn't take my eyes off of her. And I'm not saying that because she's an attractive woman, but because the way she danced and moved and she had these choreographies that went along with the music and the way that the amazing voice that she has, and she makes it look so effortless. It was just an amazing thing to watch. The fact that the band had 2 guitar players and a keytar player, I think made the sound feel so much fuller and closer to what it sounds like on the albums. Granted, there were parts that needed to be, put on backing tracks, but man, in the Battle of the Beasts, man, Battle Beast, I think, won pretty handily over Beast in Black. This was a set for the ages. Justin Westmoreland told me it was one of the best sets he's ever seen. I don't think he meant at ProgPower. I think he meant that he's ever seen. He was texting me during that whole set, and I just kept looking at my watch, and all it said over and over was "Holy shit! Holy shit! Holy shit!" It was unbelievable. Great. They only played songs from their most 3 recent albums, which makes sense because those were the albums they did after Anton left the band. But great songs. Eye of the Storm, Master of Illusion, Circus of Doom are 3 of my favorites from the new album. Wings of Light as well. And then, King for a Day and Straight to the Heart and Familiar Hell, Bastard Son of Odin. And then 2 songs from No More Hollywood Endings, which I think a lot of people consider their weakest of their last 3. They played Eden and the title track. But, man, I was blown away. Tell me if, I know that this is a band that you've had trouble with. Did they I'm not going to ask you if they made a believer out of you, but did they impress you at all? And do you feel a little bit differently about them after this performance?
I didn't know what to expect going into this. I knew the band's material well enough, even though I wouldn't consider myself a fan. But by the same token, the first and only time I saw them live, I didn't think they were overly impressive. So if the material wasn't hitting me that hard and the live performance wasn't hitting me that hard, I kind of gave up on the band, even though I'd still listen to the new album when it came out, just because I was kind of curious. But this performance blew me away, and I was shocked. And I almost didn't want to like it because I wanted to validate my own opinions from before. But they have stepped up their game tenfold. And the live guitar made all the difference in the world. And the sound, we'll call it the choreography, but just the passion for the music that they play, they made a believer out of me. And so much so that I have to go back and listen to all of the older material because I need to hear it again with this new respect that I have for the band and for what they're doing.
So you got Powerwolfed.
Yeah, pretty much. They will never, it's exactly what happened with Powerwolf. They will never be my favorite band, but I will definitely continue to check out everything they do. And I'll be shocked if they don't headline this festival one day. That's how over this performance was.
I think that they earned it with just this one show. And cheers to them for modestly taking that second slot when I think they knew that they could have been further up that list. Honestly, I think they could have gone in between Caligula's Horse and Camelot, honestly. But I didn't think it was such a bad thing to have such a high energy, just, high quality performance early on in the night. I think it probably brought the other band's level higher that followed, because having to follow that, you're going to have to really bring your A game. And that was a hell of a set. I want to just say a really extra special thanks to Mike Riley for gifting me his sponsorship, because, getting to not just be right front and center to see this performance and take lots of great pictures, but to be able to go meet the band afterwards, who were so nice and took a really, really fun photo with me. Mike Crea said that it looked like it was a wrestling promo photo where everyone was making a pose or whatever. It was really cool. And I was a big fan of Battle Beast going into ProgPower, but they propelled themselves into one of my favorite bands in just about an hour and a half of time.
That's awesome. I was seriously concerned for Ad Infinitum, who we both sponsored, just because I felt bad that they had to follow that up. And I'll say this. I think they did a very admirable job. I thought they had a very good set. It was cut short from what I understand. There were a couple of songs that they were supposed to play that they did not. So instead of playing for the full hour, they probably played closer to 50 minutes or so. So I think they cut at least 2, if not 3 songs. But that which they did play sounded great. Let me start by saying some of the nicest people you will ever meet in your entire life. I mean, the time and the energy that they spent with some of us was just above and beyond what they had to do. And just in terms of the performance itself, for a band that's still relatively young, they've only been around for 6 years at this point. I think the future is very bright. Melissa Bonney, obviously a superstar. She sounded incredible on that stage. But what impressed me even more, because I knew what I was going to get from her, having seen her sing with Camelot and whatnot, but what I didn't expect was how technically proficient the rest of the band was. And they did a great job. They didn't miss a beat. It didn't sound perfect from where I was standing practically on the stage. But towards the end of the set, I did go back into the crowd just to hear what it sounded like with the full orchestration and everything kind of in your face. And it sounded fantastic. So I'll chalk that up to just, again, where I was on the floor when I was listening to them, but having gotten a taste of what it was like to hear the full sound and the full ensemble, great job. I can only think that this is going to be the first of many shows for them in the U.S. I truly believe they're on the precipice of blowing up.
without a doubt. They're one opening for Camelot on a U.S. tour away from really, I think, making it big. Just the same way that so many other bands have done, be it Delane or, Battle Beast even. I got to see the first handful of songs. I had to leave because I wanted to go to the meet and greet with Battle Beast because they impressed me so much previous. But while I was backstage waiting to meet Battle Beast, I heard this entire set quite well, and it sounded really good. But it was one of those things where I think that from where we were standing in the photo pit, the vocals were a little bit drowned out. That was really my only complaint about it. For a 4-piece band, though, their sound was big for only having 4 people on stage, and I echo your sentiments about just how kind and gracious and awesome they all 4 of them were backstage. Melissa was busy doing her her signing session with Camelot. She could have easily just not shown up, but she came and they signed stuff. They gave us drumsticks and guitar picks, and they let us take beers and waters from their cooler. They insisted. Just a really cool group, and I wish the best for them going forward. As you mentioned, 3 songs on the set listing get played: "Live Before You Die," "Afterlife," and "From the Ashes." They were a little late coming on, and so they and they had to finish at their scheduled finish time. So there were a couple songs left out, but they did manage to play 11 tunes, and it sounds like a lot of people really enjoyed it. I know I ran into somebody that literally came to ProgPower for the first time to see them, so wow. That's always cool to hear. But yeah, tough act to follow after Battle Beast, but I thought they really did a hell of a job, and it was really cool to sponsor 2 bands in a row and meet 2 bands in a row, and they both were so nice. Were just a wonderful experience. Great stuff, and that's what I have to say about that. And as always, it's always fun to sponsor a band with you. So
thank you. I definitely enjoyed our time together. I was sad that you had to leave, but totally understood, and I'm glad that you got to hear the rest of it because I was concerned about that, to be honest with you. I have to say, very, very happy that. I'm very, very happy that the staff did such a good job keeping things on such a tight schedule. Bands went on time, bands got off on time, and when you have a festival where you're trying to plan things, that is critical, and they did a phenomenal job. So just a shout out to them. But as we kind of get deeper in this lineup, the next band, Green Carnation, I was so bummed when I did not see them in 2016, and everyone was saying it was like this religious experience. I got to be honest with you. I didn't picture it. I couldn't understand why that was the case. But when I sat in that crowd and I listened to this Green Carnation set, holy smokes. Sonically, it might have been the best live act I've ever heard. I don't know how the hell they do it, but sonically, one of the best live acts I've ever heard. And the music itself, not my favorite band, although I do like them a lot, but I'll be damned, did I not enjoy their set just because it was so good and the performance was so tight. They were one of the best performances at what they do. If Battle Beast was doing a great job on the power side, Green Carnation on the prog side just had it all going on.
Yeah, I caught a very small amount of it. I was still backstage. I think that at this point I was meeting with the Ad Infinitum band. So I was able to get back into the venue, caught a couple of songs. I think I took this opportunity to grab a bite. What I heard sounded excellent. They were, I think, a highlight the last time they played, and they're not even close to one of my favorite bands. But like you said, between the quality of the musicianship and just the mixing of how they make their sound, they really do a hell of a job, and there's no wonder why everybody always kind of goes always has such high praise for them. Now that it's been 2 performances at ProgPower, and then there'd be a third one that we'll get to shortly. But I was glad to hear that it was enjoyable. I was kind of worried I wasn't going to catch any of it, and I'm glad I was able to catch a song or two. That they were going to be my my break band of the night, and still managed to catch it. I of the 3 nights I was there, I walked into the venue and didn't leave until I was done for the night, which I haven't done in a very, very long time.
I was dealing with like hunger issues. I was like really hungry at points, so there were times where I had to leave and just skip out on certain things because I just needed something, or I needed like a break. But I made a point of seeing at least a piece, if not most, of every set. And so I was very happy with that. But it was definitely a marathon this year, just because there was so much I wanted to see, and not least of which was Caligula's Horse, who went on after Green Carnation. Like I said, another tough act to follow. But I thought they did a great job. I don't know if it was as good as their set last time, but it was damn close. This band, they will come back, I think, and I do think that they will tour the States. They could be in that category of a Haken or another band that really just kind of blows up. Their live performance is really, really good. And the difference between them and Green Carnation is that it's just more high energy. The music is a little bit different, certainly proggy, but just very accessible, very thought-provoking lyrics. I have nothing but great things to say. I thought they were fantastic, and another highlight of the night.
Yeah, I enjoyed this one quite a bit. I had a number of people insist that I see this set after missing the last time they played, and I'm so glad that I did, because they, again, another band that just all the parts coming together and just to make this really, really impressive overall sound. Really just professional, very heavy at points, very just ballsy prog metal. They remind me of, like, they have parts that are Haken-esque, but it's just so much more heavy and crunchy. And so I thought this was just an incredible performance. The vocalist Jim Gray, the just kind of the some of the stuff that he had to say in between songs was just so, I thought, heartfelt and just spiritual and just messages of positivity,
but not preachy. And I think that's important to note.
No. I mean, some people might have thought so. Some asshole in the crowd decided that he was going to, make his voice heard, to which point Jim just looked up and said, "Shut the fuck up," and just shut that guy down real fast. And that was I think that was like a highlight for a lot of people. There seems to be this disease when it comes to these shows where anytime there's more than 2 seconds of silence, you have to worry about some idiot who thinks he's hilarious, yell something out. God forbid the people on the stage be the stars of the show.
Right.
But that being said, these guys came from Australia, and they just, once again, really impressed everybody, myself included. I was on the floor for this entire set, start to finish, and I'm glad I didn't miss it. I just thought they were great, and just really, really good stuff. I look forward to the next time they do make a run through the States, because I would definitely want to see them again. They were that good.
And so a band that you have seen many times, we get to Camelot, who headlined this night and was one of the true, if not the true headliner for the entire fest, I'd argue. A Camelot set, which not only was, their tour set, but really heavily featured Melissa Bonney as well. I mean, she was out here for, almost half of these songs that they played. I thought it was a good set. I didn't think it was the best set I had heard from them, to be honest with you, obviously in terms of the set list, but even sonically, I thought it was a little fuzzy sound. Like, it just wasn't as clear as some of the bands that had preceded them, which I was surprised by, just given the fact that they have their own sound guy and their own, obviously are a professional touring act and stuff like that. So I had somewhat higher expectations, but the performance that they did deliver, sound aside, I thought was excellent. There is a reason they've gotten as popular as they have been over the last 25 years, and it's all deserved. Not my favorite set, but certainly enjoyable enough.
There's something about when a band like this goes on and, you're seeing band after band after band after band. But then when Camelot comes on, like, the stage almost looks like you're in a different venue because the way
bigger.
that
it looked bigger. Everything about it was bigger.
Yep. And just the way that they set it up and the big, backdrops and everything and the lighting, you can tell that, they just have a top-notch professional, situation. Unfortunately, there was some issues with sound cutting out and things like that, and I guess sometimes those can't be avoided. But it definitely felt like Melissa was on full display. If you read there's an interview with Thomas Youngblood in the ProgPower program that's given out at the beginning of the festival to all the attendees, and even in there, he was talking about how pleased he's been with her being their female vocalist, pretty much. They tend to bring a different female vocalist with them on different tours, and they've done it with, Elise from Amaranth and Alyssa from Arch Enemy, and in this case, Melissa Bonney was...
Started with Simone Simmons from Epica. I mean, that's how that whole thing first started.
Absolutely. You're still going to get your old school fans that are going to complain that there's not enough old stuff, and I would probably be one of those people, but they put on a hell of a show, and this was I believe the second to last show of their tour. I believe they had one more show in Orlando the next day, if I'm not confusing them with somebody else, but it seemed like everybody was really pleased. I think I called it about halfway through. It was a long day for me. Like I said, I was there from the beginning, and I've seen Camelot many, many times. But just a overall Friday from start to finish was really just fantastic, I thought.
I cut out early as well. I just it was time, but certainly enjoyable. But arguably the biggest highlight was what I saw on Saturday at noon. Green Carnation comes back out on stage, albeit a different stage, with terrible sound, just traditionally, just a room that does not necessarily have the greatest sound. And they played what they called the Acoustic Verses show, which essentially was their acoustic album, which they basically played the entire thing of, and then they threw in some covers as well. And this was particularly meaningful to me just because I have been such a fan of this particular album and what they've done on it and stuff like that. And they played 4 tracks from it, which is a lot. I was so excited for this set, and I thought that it wouldn't meet my expectations, and I'll be damned, they exceeded them again. Again, perfect sound. Now in an acoustic setting. I don't know how they do it. I've never heard a band sound so good, no matter where you see them. It is criminal to me that this band is not bigger than they are, even for a set like this. They played an acoustic version of Sweet Leaf. The night prior, they had played the electric version, which I thought was really cool because I had never heard it souped up like that. They did 2 or 3 covers, which were songs that I don't really think I was very familiar with, but I have to go now and check out the originals because the cover was so damn good. They played Nights in White Satin by the Moody Blues, which is one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard by anyone. They played 6 Ribbons, which is a John English cover, and Time in a Bottle, which is a Jim Croce cover, before doing 3 more of their own songs in this style. I thought this set was superb, and I just cannot say enough good things about it. I'm hoping and praying that somebody got some of this footage so that I can go on YouTube and watch it again. That's how much I liked it.
That's really great to hear. I always have such a hard time making it to these sets because come Saturday morning, and this was no exception, man, I woke up and I was like feeling it. And I didn't even drink the night before, but my body was just feeling it. And I was saying to myself, I can't believe I have another full day of this. And needless to say, it's the second Poverty's No Crime at their first note. I was right back into it, but it should be mentioned that before Camelot set on Friday night, the lineup for next year was announced, and at the end we're going to go through, briefly talk about all the bands that are playing next year that have been announced so far. As of right now, we actually just found out 2 of the bands that are going to play on day 1, and we know the full lineup for the rest of the days. We'll talk about that. What were your thoughts about Poverty's No Crime? Because I thought that they were a really solid opener for Saturday.
As a fan of the band for like 25 years, I actually had kind of low expectations. And that's merely because the band doesn't play live that much, and I figured they wouldn't be able to reproduce the sound live that I was kind of expecting to hear, on the albums and whatnot. But they were great. I thought that they put on a really solid show. I mean, again, these are not guys that are going to start jumping around on stage. The music doesn't lend itself for that. But they go out there and they played a very good set list. I thought the songs sounded good. I thought you could tell that they were almost holding back when it came to technical proficiency, because these guys probably could play music that's even more complex if they wanted to. I don't think that would be an issue for them, but it was just so good to check this off my bucket list. I never thought I would see this band live. They didn't disappoint. I'm not sure. I think the crowd was into it. Those people that were in attendance, I think, liked the set. I hope they sold a few albums as a result, and maybe a few T-shirts as well. I felt bad for Pat, our friend who could not be there. He wanted to see them more than anyone, but life got in the way at the 11th hour. But I enjoyed the set, and I hope you did as well. I
really did. They were a band that I did a bit of a cram session on before, like the week before, and I'm glad that I did, because I got to really get into songs like Hollow Phrases and The Key to Creativity, which I thought was like a really killer like prog ballad, and they did a hell of a job on that. I missed a very little bit of the beginning. We got there a little bit late. I think I came in right around the second or third track, but I enjoyed this a lot, and I was glad that they finally got their chance to come over here, and they really seem to be enjoying themselves. I will definitely say that. So really good choice for an opener, and I enjoyed it quite a bit.
And they were followed up by a band that was probably the complete antithesis, Evil Invaders, a band that was a fill-in, kind of not at the 11th hour, but definitely a fill-in band. But I got to be honest with you, it's nice to see some thrash on this stage. I know Charles would echo these sentiments. I know he loved this set. I missed the very beginning. I had to go just get something to eat. It was like my last chance to really get a meal in for the day. So I missed the beginning, but I caught the latter half, and I don't think it was the best thrash set I've ever heard. I think that I've seen sets by Creator that I liked more, sets by Anthrax that I loved more, but they definitely put on a good show. I think that the crowd was going apeshit for these guys, and understandably so. And it was one of the first big pits that I saw at the festival, and shockingly not during Camelot. So all in all, a good performance. I think they deserved a place on that stage. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea. But I was happy with the little that I did see, or that which I did see. I'm missing a little bit in the beginning.
Yeah, me and Justin Westmoreland were basically said, we'll go sit down, we'll give them a song or two, see how they do, and then either we'll stay or we'll leave. We stayed for the whole set. It was
wow, nice.
It was just so high energy. The high notes that their vocalist was able to hit was really, really impressive. And the energy that they brought was just, it was incredible. And I think it was infectious because everyone on the floor was losing their minds. So, I haven't seen a ton of like really heavy thrash shows like this before. But it was a blast. It was a lot of fun. Not my usual cup of tea, but they really brought it, and it was just a fun set. So yeah, I thought this was cool, and I know Charles, who like you mentioned earlier, is a big thrash guy. He enjoyed this quite a bit. So cool choice for a replacement. I mean, a very different choice because it went from Shaman to Evil Invaders, and I feel like most of the bands that would replace other bands this year were like totally different types of genres. We'll talk about Visions of Atlantis next, and they were replacing Orbit Culture. So I mean, talk about two bands
night and day.
Yeah, couldn't sound more different.
I skipped Visions of Atlantis on 70K because I knew that I was going to get this set and I would finally have a chance to see them. I've never seen them before, and to their credit, they've done a lot of U.S. tours, but for one reason or another, I just never made it to one of their shows. I was shocked. They were great. I mean, they were just really good. Clementine sounded phenomenal. The band's a little bit cheesy for my taste with the whole pirate gimmick, and they played a lot of songs off that new album, but I'll be damned, they did a great job. I think Clocks has been stuck in my head ever since they played that song live, and this was maybe the biggest surprise for me on Saturday night. I don't know that I expected them to be as good as they were, but I thought that they were, pound for pound, one of the best bands of the fest.
I was also really, really impressed. The crowd interaction, you don't see a lot of bands where two singers are just 50-50. And in this case, Clementine and Michele really had such a great chemistry together, and it just sounded good. Again, another band where it's a very orchestral thing, so there's a lot of stuff that needs to be a backing track, because you can't have a friggin' symphony orchestra on stage unless you're Trans-Siberian Orchestra or Metallica. So, but that didn't deter them at all. The set was fantastic, and I only missed a little bit of it because we took a picture with all of our fans of the podcast, which was, for me, one of the highlights of the entire trip, honestly, to see some people that have been longtime fans and supporters. That meant the world to me. And we're trying to find the professional photographer's shot of the group. I have Milton working on it, and we'll definitely post that. But for now, the shitty cell phone version is now our cover photo on Facebook. But
a sincere thank you from the bottom of my heart. That was the highlight of the weekend for me, let alone the bands. We appreciate the support, not only for all the listeners, but obviously the Patreon's folks as well. It was just so cool to meet some of you folks in person, and I look forward to doing it again next year, to be honest with you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I had somebody come up to me, more than one person come up to me and just say that they recognized me from the podcast, which I guess there means there's some people that are watching the YouTube version and not just listening to us, but having to suffer through looking at us as well. But this was a really fun set. Almost all of it came from the Pirates album, with a couple of tracks from Wanderers, but this was a blast. I really enjoyed this, and again, a really solid choice for a replacement, albeit really very different from what was originally planned.
Yeah, and staying in the whole kind of heart of the female-fronted thing that we're now about to get into 3 in a row here, but the Delane set, the return of Delane post-Charlotte. I have such strong thoughts about this band. I think the new album is great. I think that Diana Leah is a great vocalist on that album. I think she does a great job. I was a little underwhelmed during the set. I thought the music was great. I thought Diana sounded great, but I still think that the band needs time to gel as a live act together. And I don't know if it was like a lack of confidence on Diana's part or just not really owning the stage, but there was just this pacificity there that I don't know, because I like the songs, I like the her version of them, but I think Charlotte owned that stage, and you just knew that you could almost take your eyes off her because she just commanded it. And I don't think Diana is there yet, but I have a feeling that after this tour and after she continues to, record with them, that will come around because her talent is undeniable. But this song, I had higher expectations, and this one just left me a touch flat.
I loved it. I was in this was another band that I was sponsoring, and from where I was standing, I thought they were really fantastic. The mixture of songs from the new album, and then some songs from the past, like The Gathering, and
sure,
it was a great trip down through the history of the band. Martijn is a freaking beast on the keyboards, man. Having him, he really is kind of the glue that holds that band together, which makes sense. It's his band. And again, really nice bunch of guys. Got to chat with some of them, backstage. It's kind of cool because some of them were original or previously in Delane and got to rejoin the band for their reunion. And yeah, I agree. I think Diana's going to be a star. I don't know that Charlotte had that confidence at the beginning either.
No, we saw the first show. I mean, so to be fair, that came around eventually too. But like I said, I'm just calling it for what it was on its face, and to that end, it left me wanting a little bit more. But I think that over time, I think that she'll overcome that. And
I will say this: she is an absolute sweetheart. Getting a chance to chat with her, she's very, very, very sweet and very nice. And it was really nice to get to meet her. And I'd always wanted to meet Martijn. I mean, he's like a legend to me for being the man behind Delane after all these years, and even originally Within Temptation, if you really want to go back. So I thought it was a pretty triumphant return, and I think it was a real crapshoot for Glenn to book this band with no idea who was going to be in it or what the material sounded like. I think he put his faith in Martijn, and I think it was rewarded with this really solid, really good set by the band.
I wish them all the best on the tour. They obviously embarked on a U.S. tour, so hopefully that is going well. And we got two more: Unleash the Archers from Canada and Myrath from Tunisia, both of whom we've seen before. Unleash the Archers, and I want to be clear, this is where fatigue had started to become a real factor for me. So even though I stayed for almost all of these sets, I was feeling it. And I was happy when it was over just because I was ready to pass out at that point. But the long and the short of it is Unleash the Archers has improved tenfold, maybe 50-fold in terms of where they were as a live act the first time I saw them. And then when I saw them as the first post-pandemic show a couple of years ago, and now this show, they are another band that's blowing up right before our eyes. And no better testament to that than them playing fifth on this lineup. What I can say is this: if they were committed to touring and they just kind of hit the circuit and kept going, they would be playing huge rooms at some point. I think that they are. The only thing that's missing for them is just that continued studio tour pattern that some of these bands get into. But what a very good performance and a very good show, and something that I expected at this point, because last time I saw them, they blew my socks off as well.
Oh, Brittany's voice is. I posted a photo during Battle Beast set of Nora just hitting a note, and you just see her just with her mouth just agape, just letting out just this incredible note. And my only caption to that was "Holy shit!" And the next day, almost a little bit more 24 hours later, Brittany is doing the same. And so I took a picture of her, posted that, and just wrote "Holy shit" again. Those are my two favorite sets of Friday and Saturday. I thought they really, really brought it. I headbanged for the whole hour and a half that they were on the stage. They really impressed me. But like you said, I really was expecting it. It was not a surprise to me whatsoever. There were a lot of bands, not a lot of bands, but there were some bands that played at ProgPower this year that easily could have headlined, and I think Battle Beast and Unleash the Archers, and even Caligula's Horse and Vola, I would all put them in that category as bands that didn't headline but could have. That's how impressed I was with all four of those bands' performances. But and man, the room got full for those last two bands. It filled up real nice.
So take us home. Your thoughts on Mirath to close the show. Probably the only venue in the United States where they would get more than 200 people, and here they are playing to a packed house, 1,200 people strong.
Yeah, I didn't get to catch much of this. Again, like the night before, I just had reached my limit. Just running around, going backstage, coming back up, trying to find a spot, running up to the VIP bar, bullshitting with people. After 3 full days, and like we said before, we didn't even go on Wednesday, but the 3 full days, I just was like, I was sated. I was so I wasn't even tired. I was just so full of joy, and it was just such a perfect time. I'll echo Charles' sentiments. This was arguably my favorite ProgPower I've ever been to, and I've been to a lot of them. But the performances, the kindness of the bands that we met, the professionalism of the crew, and just the amazingness of the people that attend this festival that I am blessed to consider friends. We didn't even talk about all of our trips to the Vortex and all of the kind of extracurriculars that go along. For that, you just had to be there. But I think Charles kind of took the words out of my mouth earlier, because last year, at least for me, it wasn't so much about the music. It was really a lot about just getting back to doing something that we love and it feeling normal again. And seeing these people that we don't get to see all the time, and really the whole social aspect of it all. And I think that the fact that the Artmore was not a factor, and there wasn't this centralized location for people to socialize, I think that it forced people to do more of their socialization at center stage. And I think because of that, it gave us an opportunity to maybe catch more music than we normally would have. And because the lineup was so geared towards bands that I really enjoyed, whether I went into it thinking that or eventually fell that way, there was not very much that I wasn't at least slightly interested in seeing. And I caught more than I've caught in a long time. I think I counted, I saw maybe 10 bands total last year. And this year I saw almost every band pretty much that played Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So I had just the best time, and it was great. It really was. Who would you put as your, let's just say top 3 performances of the 3 nights?
So let me just say one word about Mirath, and then I'll kind of answer your question. And that's just simply their last performance was what sold them as a headliner for this performance, and they didn't disappoint. They might not headline everywhere all over the world, but they are one of the most unique and fun and energetic sounding bands out there. Not a band I listen to a ton, but every time I put them on, I'm like, why don't I listen to this more? Perfect example. So great set. I'm glad they closed the show. I did not make the very end of it, but I echo all of your sentiments for the fest itself. I had a great time. If I had to, so what was your question? The best 3 sets or my favorite 3 sets?
Your favorite. It doesn't have to be the best.
My favorite sets, Vola, no question about that. I'm going to go Caligula's Horse and I'm going to go the Green Carnation acoustic set, but with a shout out to Battle Beast and Visions of Atlantis for 2 sets that I just didn't think I was going to enjoy nearly as much as I did. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. And that's not to say that's as a slight to anyone else, but that's what just hit me in the moment at those times. What about you?
For me, I would say Battle Beast was definitely my number one. I would say, I'm gonna go Unleash the Archers at number 2, and I'll say Vola number 3. And I guess to round out the top 5, I'll throw in Visions of Atlantis as well, and man, probably a 3-way tie between Delane, Caligula's Horse, and Ad Infinitum. I mean, there was just so much to like about this festival for my taste. And so that brings us, before we talk about next year's lineup, I kind of did a little bit of a long-winded conclusion there. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to do the same.
No, you took the words out of my mouth. It's something that I look forward to each and every year. I'm glad that everyone came back healthy and safe and all that stuff. I'm glad that everyone that reached out and that introduced themselves, I thought that I was really touched by a lot of that. I mean, like, super touched. And to that end, now I start looking forward to next year, which we know 3 of the nights and we know half of the 4th. I'm just going to run through this list quickly, and then I just want your overarching thoughts. I don't want to go into every band just because there will be ample time for that, but I do want to mention 1 or 2 things in particular because I'm looking forward to a couple of these sets immensely. But without further ado, what do we know at the time of this recording? Circus Maximus and Angra are co-headlining night 1. 3 more bands, I believe, to be announced. Day 2, brand new on the scene, No Spun out of North Carolina, opening up night 2 of ProgPower, followed by Northtail, Scar Symmetry in the 3 slot, Twilight Force, Leprous, and Dark Tranquility for what I can only describe as one of the heavier nights in Prog Power history. That is some heavy, heavy stuff, especially towards the end. And
that lineup has gotten a lot of positive feedback, and that's a lot of heavy hitters, man. That top 4 is some big name bands. Northtail, I think, we're just ready for this U.S. debut. Finally, I feel like this is like the 40th time that they've been booked on this festival. It might be the second. It just feels like the 40th. And No Spun or No Spoon, not sure how you pronounce that. Shout out to Knops. This was his discovery, and he brought this to our attention, and Justin brought it to Milton's attention, and people are excited about this. And we've joked about a band that we weren't able to talk about. We were asked to kind of keep it under wraps
because of the non-disclosure agreements and everything else. But this was the band I was hyping months ago, and I said, "Holy shoot!" Basically, oh my god, it's happening! And then, now they're going to be booked and play this thing. I am so excited. This is the set I think I'm looking forward to as much, if not more, than anything else. Let alone 1 or 2 over the weekend. I can't wait for this set.
Yep, and you got to figure. I think they only have 1 album, so chances
they're
are
probably playing most of it. Not the whole thing.
which is a good thing. Definitely, we both urge everyone out there who has not listened to this album to go check it out.
I'm going to tell you right now. We're covering the album on the
I was just going to say, it seems like almost an impossibility that we would.
It is my album of the year, so if we don't do it now, we'll do it right after the new year. I've not heard anything better than this all year. So could it happen? Absolutely. But as of now, it's my album of the year. I cannot wait to see them.
There you go.
Let me just run through days 3 and 4. Striker out of Canada, Fifth Angel resurfacing from the dead with their new album as the number 2 band. Elegy out of the Netherlands, surprise, surprise, as the number 3 band. We just covered their album Manifestation of Fear, followed by Soen in the 4 slot, which I think is actually kind of a low for them. Maybe a testament to the strength of the lineup. Love Bites out of Japan and Amorphous out of Finland on day 3. And then on day 4, Frozen Crown out of Italy, Germans Disillusion in the 2 slot, Sweden's Elaine in the 3 slot, Damian Wilson doing a career retrospective in the 4 slot. So you're going to get Star One, you're going to get Arion, you're going to get Threshold, you're going to get all the stuff he's. I would be shocked if he didn't do a Les Mis song, to be honest with you. I'm serious. I God only knows what he's going to pull out. The return of Pagan's Mind from Norway, and the oddball Winger as the headliner. That's right, America's Winger performing their album Pull in its entirety. Some broad thoughts on this before we hear your album for next week?
Absolutely. I need to spend some time with 3 of these bands. 4 if we're going to include Winger. But Striker, Fifth Angel, and Disillusion. I'm going to need. I've heard a couple of tracks from each of them over the years, but definitely need to do more research there. Pumped that Elegy was announced because I feel like this was a band that always belonged on the ProgPower lineup at some point, and now it's finally going to happen. Thankfully that they're reunited. Was absolutely floored by the Love Bites announcement. Didn't really know that I would ever see this band at ProgPower. I kind of figured they'd eventually blow up big enough to do a U.S. tour, but it looks like this is going to be the entry point for them. I think they're crazy talented. To me, if you're a fan of Galnerius, this is kind of the female equivalent of Galnerius. This is an all-female band, which is really, really cool. Amorphous, just a headliner in any venue, in my opinion. Pumped for Frozen Crown and Elaine, 2 other female-fronted bands that I'm a big fan of. Psyched for Damian Wilson. I think I need to do a little bit more Pagan's Mind research. Just a band that I've never really dug into over the years. I know the songs I know, and I really like the songs I know. But, I need to dig a little bit more into that. As far as Winger goes, performing this Pull album, that's what we're doing next week. Because
really?
I want to know why Glenn chose this. And I think there's a lot of people that want to know. And it just seems like the timing for this is perfect because people have questions and maybe we can answer some of them. So I thought it would make a good segue. The timing is good. So let's just, instead of waiting until July of next year, let's just friggin' pull the Band-Aid off and do this thing.
This is an excellent, obviously timely choice. I know a lot of people are kind of like not understanding why this album was selected, but that being said, I think that I think it's different than what other people expect. I have listened to it a few times, so I am vaguely familiar with it. I'm not going to say I'm intimately familiar with it, but to that end, I think that people will be pleasantly surprised.
Well, I'll say this: I don't know a note from this album, so I'm going into this thing. Even up to this point, whatever was played on that loudspeaker before the screen went dead,
that's the first note you'd heard.
Yeah, that's it. So I'm going in blind, and I will be painfully honest if need be. I have a feeling I won't have to be, but I kind of just want it. I'm so curious. I want to know now. I don't want to wait. So
I like it. Winger, Pull next week. Back to our regularly scheduled episodes. Some other cool surprises in store in the coming weeks and months. Stuff that I'm not able to divulge at this time, but stuff we will be talking about in the not so distant future. So thanks again to everyone for listening. I know we went a little bit long today, but we appreciate your support. Please consider giving our Patreon a listen or a look, if you will. And if not, join, tell a friend. That's word of mouth goes a long way. A like and a follow does the same. So we appreciate the support. And we will catch you next week as we go back and we listen to some Winger. I feel like Q Beavis and Butthead, but no, we're gonna leave it here. Winger next week on the Metal Exchange. Get some much needed rest, my friend. I will talk to you soon.
Oh, I am so excited to just go to bed. But yeah, this was an amazing week, and it's been so much fun getting prepared for it via the podcast. So I feel like that made my excitement level all the more higher. And I think having other people to bounce off of and hear their excitement about it, I think overall just enhanced the whole experience. So, but in a way, I'm a little relieved that it's all done, and now we can kind of get back to our usual plan of attack, and that's just going back and forth on albums. We got requests lined up well into the new year, so lots to look forward to. But we keep chugging along, and I'm excited for what we have to go on in the future. But ProgPower is a wrap, and so is this episode. So we'll talk to you next week.
Cheers, my friend.